When divers first descended into the black water of Lake Superior in 1976, they expected twisted steel and silence. What they found instead left them wordless. Nearly 160 meters below the surface lay the SS Edmund Fitzgerald, split neatly in two, her bow upright as if still pushing through the storm. Cargo spilled across the lakebed, 26,000 tons of iron ore glittering like dull stars. Amid the debris were shoes, clocks stopped at 7:10 p.m., and the ghostly outline of a life jacket, canvas long dissolved. It wasn't just a shipwreck, it was a frozen moment of human courage and catastrophe. Into the depths. When the SS Edmund Fitzgerald vanished on November 10, 1975, it left behind only silence and static on the radios of the Arthur M. Anderson, her companion ship. The following morning of November 11th, search aircraft traced empty water north of Whitefish Bay, but found nothing. No oil slick, no debris, no survivors. For 4 anxious days, the U.S. Coast Guard and Navy swept the lake in deteriorating weather. Then on November 14th, a U.S. Navy P-3 Orion equipped with a magnetic anomaly detector registered faint metallic signals deep below Lake Superior, confirmation that the ship was there, resting under nearly 160 meters of water. Subsequent side-scan sonar mapping, conducted jointly by the Coast Guard and the U.S. Navy, revealed 2 major sonar returns lying close together on the lake floor. Each measured roughly 100 meters in length, separated by about 52 meters of silt-dark water. The shapes matched the 222-meter-long Fitzgerald, but the division hinted at tragedy. The vessel appeared to be broken in two. Between them, the survey plotted fields of scattered echoes, cargo, plating, machinery, evidence of violence rather than decay. To verify, the Navy deployed the CUR-Vive-3 remotely operated vehicle. Its lights pierced water the color of graphite, illuminating a world that had not moved since the 10th of November 1975 at 7:10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, the estimated time of loss. Cameras confirmed the bow section upright, embedded in sediment, the stern overturned roughly 50 degrees off alignment. Around both halves lay mountains of taconite pellets, spilled cargo glinting like metallic sand. Hatch covers, beams, and steel plating formed a debris field stretching more than 200 meters. Those first images ended weeks of speculation, but began decades of questioning. The Fitzgerald's resting place was no longer myth or rumor, it was geography. A single storm had torn one of the largest vessels on the Great Lakes apart within minutes. The wreck's posture, bow upright, stern inverted, told investigators the ship had not simply plunged intact. Something catastrophic had happened on the surface before impact, and that mystery would drive every expedition that followed. The steel had been found, but traces of the people who sailed her were still missing. Nearly 20 years later, when new cameras returned to those coordinates, they would find something far more personal than torn metal, the remnants of human presence still waiting in the cold dark. Scenes from the deep. In 1994, a dive team led by researcher Joseph B. Shannon revisited the site under permit from the Great Lakes Shipwreck Historical Society. Using improved ROV video systems rated for 170 meters, they discovered what earlier missions had missed: partial human remains near the bow. One crewman, still partly clothed, lay embedded in silt, a decayed life jacket around his torso. The vest's canvas fabric, eaten away by bacteria, exposed cork flotation blocks that had survived 19 years underwater, proof that at least one man had tried to escape. Artifact mapping showed the wreckage was anything but orderly. Several hatch covers and deck plates rested more than 60 meters from the hull, hurled aside by internal force or by impact. Taconite pellets blanketed everything, creating dunes that shimmered beneath ROV lights. Pieces of railing, twisted ladders, and crushed piping lay mixed with the ore. Each object was cataloged under U.S. Navy Survey Report Number 95-04, forming a three-dimensional jigsaw of violence frozen in time. Close examination of hatch clamps startled engineers. Many appeared undamaged, threads intact, dogs still engaged, contradicting the official 1977 Coast Guard inquiry, which had blamed unsecured hatches for flooding. The contradiction widened the investigation. If water had entered through open hatches, why did so many remain locked? Video footage also revealed inward bent plating near midships, suggesting stresses beyond typical wave loading. Forensic teams treated the site as both grave and data set. Sampling was minimal, disturbance prohibited. The haunting clarity of the lake's 2-degree Celsius water preserved details seldom seen in marine wrecks. The evidence painted a portrait of sudden calamity, a crew caught between survival instinct and physics too fast to fight. From human remains and twisted steel, investigators turned to geometry. The two halves of the Fitzgerald lay 170 feet, 52 meters, apart, a silent clue that structure failed before the hull reached the bottom. To understand how, engineers would revisit the storm itself, modeling forces no ship of that era was designed to endure. Breakup before descent. Measurements from the 1976 and 1989 sonar surveys show the bow and stern resting separately, the midsection missing entirely. The spacing, about 52 meters, matches what would occur if the ship split on or near the surface. Naval architect Robert Fraser, analyzing hull stress diagrams, noted that in 11-meter seas the Fitzgerald could experience bending moments exceeding 7.5 times 10 to the 8th Newton meters, enough to crack weakened plate seams. The evidence of sheared welds and jagged edges, visible in ROV imagery, supports tension failure rather than compression from impact. Witness data add weight. The Arthur M. Anderson, last to see Fitzgerald alive at 7:10 p.m., reported 2 massive radar echoes, likely rogue waves, approaching from the northwest minutes before the signal vanished. Such 3 sisters waves, each roughly 1/3 larger than the last, are known on Lake Superior. A 17-meter combined crest striking amidships could flex a 26,000-ton vessel beyond its elastic limit. Video from later dives shows hull plating torn outward, as if stress originated internally while the ship still had buoyancy. Some researchers counter that bottom impact alone might explain the break. If the bow hit first at 16 meters per second, inertia could snap the stern upward. Yet sediment profiles under the bow show minimal penetration, only 3 meters, implying a slower descent, not a freefall. Moreover, debris distribution fans forward, not aft, consistent with breakup at or just below the surface, scattering cargo before descent. To this day, no single theory resolves every observation. What remains clear is that the Fitzgerald's final moments combined structural fatigue, overwhelming wave stress, and mechanical vulnerability. The lake did not merely claim the ship, it tore it apart mid-motion. If the hull itself gave way in the storm's teeth, the next question was why water entered so quickly. Investigators would return to the simplest, oldest fear of sailors, the hatches above their heads, and ask whether a cascade of flooding, not just structural failure, sealed the fate of the Edmund Fitzgerald. Hatch cover collapse and flooding theory. When the U.S. Coast Guard released its final accident report in May 1977, its conclusion centered not on a structural break but on flooding. Investigators argued that the 29 cargo hatches covering the Fitzgerald's long oar holds may not have been fully secured before departure from Superior, Wisconsin on November 9, 1975. Each cover was held by 68 steel clamps. If even a few failed under wave pressure, water could have entered the holds faster than the ship's pumps could manage. Meteorological reconstruction by the National Weather Service showed wave heights exceeding 11 meters that evening, with crest intervals of less than 15 seconds. Under those conditions, the deck would have been repeatedly awash. Using NTSB calculations from the late 1970s, engineers estimated dynamic pressures of 12 to 14 psi on hatch panels, comparable to the weight of a compact car hitting each square meter of steel every few seconds. The failure of a single cover could have flooded a 1,000-ton compartment in minutes, reducing buoyancy and amplifying bending stress midship. However, later dives complicated this picture. Video captured by cameraman John Orlowski during the 1989 Great Lakes Shipwreck Historical Society expedition revealed many hatch clamps intact, unbent, and still locked. Some hatches had collapsed inward, others remained sealed. This irregularity puzzled investigators. If water entered through the hatches, why were several undamaged? The evidence suggested localized failure, not a system-wide collapse. The NTSB's structural modeling, later updated with computer simulations, supported a mixed scenario. Heavy boarding seas striking weakened covers might have opened one or two holes first. That flooding could shift internal loads, bending the hull amidships until failure propagated outward. The Fitzgerald, already riding lower due to heavy cargo, her freeboard reduced to 11 feet, had little margin for recovery. Once water reached the deck level, stability would have gone within 90 seconds. But while the hatch cover theory explained flooding, it could not explain the violence of the breakup. For that, attention turned to the waves themselves. In the haunted folklore of Lake Superior, they have a name, the Three Sisters, and they may have been waiting for the Fitzgerald on that final night. Wave trauma. The crew of the Arthur M. Anderson, trailing roughly 10 nautical miles behind the Fitzgerald on November 10, 1975, provided the most compelling first-hand account. At approximately 7 p.m., Captain Jesse B. Cooper reported encountering 3 enormous waves in quick succession. Radar logs show their combined amplitude exceeding 11 meters, the largest recorded on the Great Lakes to that date. The Anderson survived, but radio contact with Fitzgerald ceased within minutes. These rogue formations, known locally as Three Sisters, occur when wind waves align with reflected swells, stacking to form steep, sequential walls of water. Hydrodynamic modeling by NOAA's Great Lakes Environmental Research Laboratory in 2005 reconstructed conditions that night. Sustained winds near 60 knots, 111 kilometers per hour, pressure of 978 millibars, and fetch distances exceeding 300 kilometers. Simulations demonstrated that composite waves could momentarily reach heights of 14 to 17 meters, more than sufficient to crush hatches or snap a fatigued hull. A scale model test conducted at the David Taylor Naval Ship Research Center later confirmed that a 17-meter wave impacting midship could generate stresses near 8 times 10 to the 8th Newton meters, matching forensic estimates from the wreck. In such an event, the Fitzgerald's bow could have buried into one wave as another struck the stern, subjecting the vessel to opposing bending moments, hogging and sagging in sequence until steel tore under tension. Eyewitness parallels exist. In 1978, the bulk carrier Anderson Herbert C. Jackson survived a nearly identical triple wave, suffering buckled plates and a twisted deck. What spared her was a lighter load and higher freeboard. The Fitzgerald, deeper and more rigid, may have simply reached the limit of endurance. The rogue waves were not myth, they were physics. If the lake's fury explained the external force, the Fitzgerald's own design may have supplied the weakness. Over the years, subtle regulatory changes, material fatigue, and the economics of maximum cargo all converged into a single hidden flaw that no one could see until it failed. Structural stress and hull weaknesses. When launched in 1958 at the Great Lakes Engineering Works in River Rouge, Michigan, the SS Edmund Fitzgerald was the largest ship on North America's inland waters, 729 feet, 222 meters, long, 75 feet, 23 meters, wide, and rated for 26,000 tons of taconite. To meet post-war demand, designers used welded modular construction rather than rivets, saving weight but introducing potential stress concentration along welded seams, particularly amidships where hull bending is greatest. By the late 1960s, new load line regulations allowed Great Lakes freighters to carry heavier cargoes. Fitzgerald's draft increased by 0.9 meters, reducing her freeboard and raising the center of gravity. Each voyage under these conditions imposed greater longitudinal bending moments. Structural engineers reviewing her maintenance logs found evidence of minor groundings in 1969 and 1970, including contact with a shoal near River Rouge. No visible damage was recorded, but cumulative microfractures could have propagated along weld joints. Under the storm's 60-knot winds and 11-meter waves, the ship likely experienced alternating hogging, bending upward, and sagging, bending downward, cycles every 12 to 15 seconds. Finite element analyses published in ResearchGate Journal of Marine Structures, 2016, indicate that fatigue cracking in the keel plate could reduce ultimate bending strength by 20 to 25%. When combined with flooding-induced weight asymmetry, structural collapse becomes inevitable. The Fitzgerald's final radio transmission at 7:10 p.m., "We are holding our own," now sounds tragically literal. Within moments, the central hull may have folded like a hinge. The bow plunged, the stern lifted and inverted. Metal failed along previous scars invisible above deck. In those seconds, a ship once called the pride of the American side simply vanished. Waves, steel, pressure, and time had spoken. Yet every new analysis raised contradictions. Undamaged clamps, misplaced plating, scattered cargo. As divers continued their work through the late 1980s and 1990s, the wreck began to tell a more complex story, one that questioned every official explanation and left investigators facing the same question that haunted the lake for half a century. What really happened down there? Contradictions, anomalies, and puzzling observations. By the late 1980s, a pattern of contradictions began to challenge the official flooding theory. The 1989 expedition, using a high-definition camera mounted on the ROV Delta, revealed hatch clamps that appeared untouched by force. Out of 68 clamps per hatch, many remain locked, threads unstripped, paint still adhering. This was difficult to reconcile with the notion of waves ripping multiple hatches open. Even under 14 CI impact, undisturbed latches suggested the cover stayed secured until the very end. Structural engineers noticed something else. On the overturned stern, metal appeared torn upward, not downward, shear consistent with tension failure, meaning the hull was pulled apart rather than crushed. In several frames, plating displayed scallop-shaped fractures, identical to those produced in laboratory tests of steel, overstressed by alternating hog and sag cycles. These patterns occur when a vessel flexes beyond its elastic limit repeatedly before catastrophic rupture. That finding aligned with fatigue, not slow flooding. Another anomaly lay in the wheelhouse and foredeck. Portions of the bridge roof were flattened inward as if struck by waves above waterline, while bulkheads below remained intact. This suggested heavy green water on deck before sinking. Proof of the storm's power, but also evidence the ship was still afloat when superstructure damage occurred. Footage released through the Great Lakes Shipwreck Historical Society showed collapsed ventilators bent forward, matching the storm's wind direction from 320 degrees northwest on November 10, 1975. Artifacts deepen the mystery. The ship's bell, recovered in July 1995 by divers Fred Shannon and Tom Farnquist, bore no impact deformation, only mild corrosion. The absence of deep gouges across large artifacts implied the wreck had not cartwheeled violently on descent. Each inconsistency added weight to the idea that the Fitzgerald broke apart while still on or near the surface. For every contradiction in steel, another appeared in the pattern of debris itself. The bow, stern, and scattered ore formed not chaos but geometry, a clue to how the ship came apart in motion. To interpret it, investigators mapped the lakebed as if it were a frozen crime scene, tracing where each fragment came to rest. What the wreck tells us about the sinking versus reports. The wreck's layout became a language. Side-scan sonar mosaics from 1980, 1989, and 1994 consistently show the bow upright, the stern inverted, and a broad fan of debris stretching northeast for roughly 200 meters. Within that fan lay hundreds of tons of taconite pellets, hatch covers, and hull plating, but notably little evidence of deep bottom impact scouring. Sediment displacement beneath the bow measured only 2.8 meters, far less than an intact ship's kinetic descent would cause. Forensic hydrodynamic models developed at Bowling Green State University indicated that water resistance during descent would have slowed each half differently. The bow, heavier and streamlined, reached the bottom first. The stern rotated and inverted mid-fall, striking at an angle near 50 degrees. Video from the 1989 ROV survey confirmed this geometry precisely. Such a pattern could only result if structural separation occurred above the thermocline on or just below the surface, allowing independent trajectories. Comparing wreck evidence with reports from the Arthur M. Anderson highlighted further tension. Anderson's radar contact vanished at 7:10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. 5 minutes later, she crossed the Fitzgerald's last position without visual debris. That narrow time frame ruled out slow flooding. The suddenness implied catastrophic structural loss, not progressive water ingress. Survivor accounts do not exist, yet every square meter of the wreck acts as testimony. The torn midsection, scattered ore, and twisted beams all record seconds, not minutes, of destruction. In sum, the physical record contradicts early theories of gradual flooding followed by foundering. Instead, it supports a rapid, violent breakup driven by extreme bending moments and surface wave trauma. The ship, by evidence alone, may have failed while still visible above the storm. As data converged toward the same grim conclusion, attention turned from cause to consequence. What had the loss of the Edmund Fitzgerald changed, beyond 29 lives and a legend? In its aftermath, shipbuilders, regulators, and mariners across the Great Lakes rewrote their understanding of strength, safety, and respect for the inland seas. Implications and lessons from the wreck findings. The tragedy redefined inland shipping. Following the 1977 Coast Guard report and the parallel NTSB review of 1978, regulations on freeboard and load lines were tightened. Vessels exceeding 700 feet in length were required to maintain greater reserve buoyancy and reinforced hatch coamings. Inspection intervals for hatch clamps shortened from 24 months to 12. By 1982, these measures became standard across the Great Lakes fleet. Engineering culture also changed. Naval architects began using finite element analysis, once confined to aerospace, to model hull flexure under rogue wave conditions. Data from the Fitzgerald inspired comparative studies on the Edgar B. Spear, 1976, and Indiana Harbor, 1979, showing that reinforcement of midship longitudinal girders could increase structural endurance by 30%. Modern carriers now incorporate sensors recording strain in real time, transmitting telemetry back to shore. The technology owes its existence to lessons written in the Fitzgerald steel. Culturally, the wreck became sacred. In 1989, the Canadian and U.S. governments jointly designated the site a protected grave. No artifact may be removed without consent of next of kin. When the ship's bell was recovered in 1995, it was replaced with a bronze duplicate engraved with the names of all 29 crew. Each November 10th, the bell tolls 29 times at the Great Lakes Shipwreck Museum in Whitefish Point, a ritual of remembrance that outlasts debate. The loss also reshaped public perception. The song, The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald, released in November 1976 by Gordon Lightfoot, carried the story worldwide, turning engineering failure into shared elegy. Yet beneath the legend lies a technical truth. The lake's power exceeded 20th century confidence. Every cargo load, every inspection code written since carries the same unspoken signature. Superior remembers. Even after the data, the analysis, and the reforms, one question endures: certainty. Did the Fitzgerald die from waves, weakness, or both? Half a century later, divers and historians still circle the coordinates, reading the lake's quiet handwriting on metal and sand. Some mysteries are solved in equations. Others remain in the dark. Unsolved mysteries and the final questions. Nearly 50 years after November 10, 1975, the Edmund Fitzgerald still refuses a single narrative. The wreck yields evidence enough to support multiple truths: a storm of rare intensity, a vessel perhaps fatigued by years of heavy service, and a chain of mechanical and human decisions made under pressure. But the final moments remain unrecorded, locked within those 160 meters of cold water. Questions persist. Did the hull fracture while still on the surface, split by opposing waves at 7:10 p.m., or only after striking bottom minutes later? What role did the three sisters play? Statistical anomaly or repeating event yet to be fully modeled. Modern sonar from the University of Minnesota's 2021 survey suggests micro-fracture lines consistent with pre-impact tension, but confirmation demands physical sampling that the site's memorial status forbids. Structural fatigue also lingers as an invisible culprit. Records show minor repairs to the keel between 1969 and 1973 after grounding incidents near Detroit River. Metallurgists argue that hidden cracks may have propagated through welds each voyage. Without survivors, testimony ends at data. Undamaged clamps, twisted plating, scattered taconite like breadcrumbs across the lakebed. Each clue points to both strength and fragility, the paradox of human engineering meeting natural force. Ultimately, the Fitzgerald's mystery survives because Lake Superior preserves it perfectly. At 2 degrees Celsius, oxygen levels so low they prevent decay, the ship lies as it fell, silent, whole in its brokenness. Explorers who visit describe not revelation but reverence. The wreck is both tomb and textbook, lesson and legend. It tells us that no design is absolute, that respect for the sea or the lake must be continual, not retrospective. And so the questions remain, humming beneath the surface like the low frequency of the deep. How does steel remember a wave? Each November 10th, when bells ring across the Great Lakes, we answer in silence. The Edmund Fitzgerald is no longer a mystery to solve, but a story to keep, a measure of humility against the power of water, and the enduring echo of 29 voices carried forever under Superior's gray skin. Today, the Edmund Fitzgerald rests exactly where she fell on November 10, 1975, a steel cathedral sealed beneath 2 degrees Celsius water. Remote cameras show her name still legible across the bow. Her bell, recovered in 1995, rings each year for the 29 souls who never returned. Forensic dives and sonar mapping have transformed legend into evidence. Intact hatch clamps, challenging old flood theories. Twisted welds, revealing the unimaginable stress of the storm. Yet the deeper investigators look, the more mystery they find. Every plate of metal, every scattered taconite pellet, every undisturbed glove speaks of seconds, no more, between survival and oblivion. In the silence of that depth, science and memory meet. The wreck is neither ghost story nor relic. It is testimony, a reminder that even the mightiest ship can fail, and that the Great Lakes, serene on the surface, still hold storms strong enough to erase certainty itself. What the archaeologists found was not horror, it was humility, the enduring truth that water keeps its secrets, and that history, when finally seen, can take your breath away.